Good evening, Citadel Bulldog fans, and we welcome you to Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue for another edition of the Head Coach Brent Thompson radio show. Glad to have you with us tonight. Our crowd is on hand. They're looking good, and here we go with another hour of talking about Citadel football and back to the grind for the Bulldogs this week as they will jump into a stretch where they'll play 8 straight regular season games to close out the regular season, and it all starts on Saturday afternoon on the road again as they will take on the Catamounts of Western Carolina University in Cullowhee this week. Glad to be joined by the head coach, Brent Thompson. Good to have you back, Coach, and back to a sense of normalcy for you guys. So let's start talking about things regarding the program and just recap for us. I know you talked about a lot of this when we were on the show last week, but talk about the sorts of things you try to do and the agenda you tried to set and keep and goals you had for your open date, which just concluded itself.
Yeah, Mike, we took last week and we worked on a lot of fundamentals. They may have taken an injury during camp, but they all, they're all back healthy. We're at about 100% right now. So we're excited to, get moving and get into a regular game week again.
100% is a pretty good place to be from an injury perspective, but it's one of the things that you can't control about the game. It's one of the things you can't control when you're a coach. I know, and we'll get into this a little bit later, I know that your opponent this weekend cannot say the same thing. So good to be in a position where you've got all your guys back and you've got options there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's depth is always an issue, especially when you're limited at the FCS level to scholarships. So you got to make do with what you've got, and our players have done a great job of conditioning their bodies and staying in great shape.
We have a lot of things to talk about with the coach on the show today, and we're going to get into a lot of different topics. Last week on the show, the coach let us know that Dominique Allen would be his starter at quarterback. You repeated that yesterday in your weekly press conference, and so we'll get into that a little bit. There was an honor laid out for punter Will Vanvick that just came out a little earlier today. And we'll get into Western Carolina in this particular show. I didn't talk about them a lot in last week's show because of where things were, but a lot more about Western Carolina in this particular show this evening. I want to ask the coach a few things about recruiting. I'm also going to ask him about something that has been maybe not as widespread this year as in record years, but this year is better than last year in terms of FCS programs beating FBS programs. And so we'll talk about that coming up on the show a little bit later on. And again, the weapons that Western Carolina has in its arsenal that the Bulldogs will have to contend with for this particular week. So everything good. Recruiting is something that I don't talk about to you as much as perhaps I should, Coach. And so I'll mention, obviously, it's an ongoing process. I've talked to a lot of coaches before that say that recruiting's like shaving. If you don't do it every day, you're going to look kind of bad. And so especially in an open date week, tell us again what you're able to do and in terms of getting off campus, staying on campus, reaching out to young men, watching high school games. What did you try to do during the open date for that?
Yeah, Mike, we're allowed to do an evaluation, which means that we can go to the high school, we can get an academic evaluation, we can speak to the coach, we can kind of gauge where they're going to be GPA-wise. We can also attend games, and we all got out and attended some games on Friday night. But for the most part, what we did was I took the staff, and each of the day I just cut more and more guys loose. I thought it was important for us to get out on the bye week and get out there, especially in-state, take care of a lot of our in-state guys, make sure that we're getting all the paperwork that we possibly need, and that we get all the film that we possibly need, and that we get all the evaluations that we could possibly need before the regular recruiting season starts. So that way, you can get out to your areas and you can make a lot of time up. So what we did was I cut 2 guys loose after Tuesday's practice, 2 coaches loose. They went to Georgia, and I cut 2 guys loose, and they went to Florida after Wednesday's practice. And then after Thursday's practice, I cut all 4 guys, the rest of the staff, really loose to go do their South Carolina areas. So we did a good job of covering the state of South Carolina later on in the week. And they went mostly on Friday, got all the work done on Friday. Instead, a lot of them stayed out for some games. So it's a good opportunity for us to get out and build those relationships with the high schools and the high school coaches that we need to be able to recruit their players in the future.
Again, a little bit later on, we're going to talk about Western Carolina more in depth. And but last question in this particular segment, Coach, I had seen and I have heard For example, Coach Sweeney at Clemson, talk about where Clemson is after 4 games this year versus where they were after 4 games last year. Where do you feel like your team is after 3 games this year versus where they were after 3 games last year?
Yeah, having more of an experienced quarterback back there makes it a little bit more, progress than you thought. I thought we were challenged. I thought we responded to the challenge. Now, I don't think we're anywhere near where we need to be or where we were at the end of last year. But, I think we're maybe a little bit further ahead. There's some portions of our game where we're slightly behind. But really, for the most part, I think that we're about on track, maybe a little bit ahead of where we were last year. And going into our bye week last year, we had it after week 4. Now, we really had to evaluate where we were and try to get good at what we were doing. So we kind of passed that phase over, and we did our fundamental work last week. So this week, we're kind of focusing on really getting back into some schemes.
We are off and running with the head coach Brent Thompson radio show. We are at the West Ashley location of Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue. This is just one of 3 places. They also have a location on Sullivan's Island at 2209 Middle Street. Also a new downtown location at 126 Williman Street. But the place we're in right now, we're actually sitting in the brand new room. It's so new that they haven't really even named it yet here in West Ashley. And so you have 5 flat screen televisions, 40 seats. They're available for private parties in this particular area. And so if that is a need that you might have, you might want to check into yet another option in the Low Country, and that is Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue with this location at West Ashley, one of their 3 locations now. More about all that coming up a little bit later on in the show. We'll take our first break of the show and come back and talk a little Western Carolina with head coach Brent Thompson on Sports Radio 1450.
Buying a home is a big financial decision, so you need a strong team working on your mortgage. That team is at South Atlantic Bank.
Decisions are made right here in our community by mortgage professionals who really know the Low Country.
South Atlantic Bank offers competitive rates and terms on loans for home purchase or refinance. If you need a mortgage loan, you need the mortgage loan professionals at South Atlantic Bank.
South Atlantic Bank Mortgage Group, providing the keys to home ownership.
You've seen us compete on Barbecue Pit Wars. You've heard about our award-winning barbecue and wings, but have you tried Qology yet? Barbecue nachos, award-winning ribs, barbecue tacos, and of course our pulled pork sandwiches just for a start. Live entertainment and happy hour Monday through Friday from 4 to 7 p.m. Visit Qology Barbecue today, located at 32C North Market Street at the corner of North Market and East Bay.
Charleston Crab House has been serving locals and visitors alike for the last 20 years. We have our crispy whole flounder. We have the seared ahi tuna. You name it, in the seafood business, we have it.
Be sure to stop by the Tiger and Leaf Lounge whenever you visit our locations. We have many frozen and specialty drinks, awesome margaritas. One of my favorites is the Wapu Punch.
If you don't like it down in the historic district, come over to James Island, sit on the Intercoastal Waterway. It is an unbelievable view where it's southern seafood at sensible prices and a darn good time. Charleston Crab House.
Red 97! Set! Red 97!
Did you say 97?
Yes.
You know, that reminds me of Geico's 97% customer satisfaction rating.
97%?
Helped by Geico's fast and friendly claim service.
Oh yeah, baby. Geico's as fast and friendly as it gets.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Red 97! Set! Red 97!
All right, we are back. This is the head coach Brent Thompson radio show live from Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue in West Ashley. Glad to have you back with us here with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Brent Thompson. I'm Mike Legg. Thanks so much for being with us tonight on the show. And we have, just like the Bulldogs have, a series of shows remaining here. We will have a show leading all the way up until their final game. And so we have about 8 shows left as well. And so hope you'll come out and take a look. Hope you'll come out and take a visit with us here. One thing that people who come to the show have an opportunity to do is win a men's watch or a ladies' watch. They are both Citadel-branded watches, and they come from Garfield Jewelers. I have a clipboard on the table in front of Coach and I where you can sign up, and it doesn't matter how many times you sign up. You can do that once every time you come to a show. The more you attend, the more chances you have to win one of those watches. And so please do that before the season is all said and done. Reminder here at West Ashley from 3 until 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. We have a food happy hour going on. It's an appy hour, if you will, 25% off all appetizers. From 4 to 7 Monday through Friday, $1 off across the board on beer and liquors. So great advantages for coming out and watching the show each and every Wednesday night. So glad to have you with us on the show here this evening as we move on now with Coach Thompson. And I did want to get into the circumstance with your quarterback situation, Coach. As you told us on last week's show, it'll be Dominique Allen, but you also told us you would look for opportunities to get Jordan Black into the game, obviously with a young man who's got that kind of athleticism and, as you've pointed out, a young man who has not done anything that would warrant him not having playing time other than circumstances. That's a good thing to try to do. So talk about the ways that you can kind of keep him involved with regards to the offense without kind of goofing up the rhythm. That's a little bit of a judgment call on your part, I would think.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I told him, I want him to stay engaged in the offense. I want him to stay, aware of what's going on the field at all times. And he's not going to know. And sometimes it'll be just a feel on my part, but I want to get him involved because you never know. There's something good happen to Dom. There's no doubt about that. But you never know when he's going to cause the spark. He could be the guy that causes the spark. So you never really know where that's going to come into play. But I think just it's going to be important to keep him involved in both halves. I think we're going to play him in both halves. You
have told me on many occasions that you run a lot of plays every time you have a practice. So what is the percentage of reps right now for Dom Allen and the percentage of reps right now for Jordan Black? And what does that equate to in terms of a number of plays?
Yeah, we're about 60-40. We run somewhere around 100 plays per day. So we're probably right around 40 plays with Jordan Black in there and Dom with about 60 or so. So you're not looking at too much of a difference there. Depending on what we do for inside run, we kind of get quite a few in inside run, but they kind of split them up. So it all depends really on on the particular day. But Tuesday and Wednesday is a big work day for us. We'll get anywhere from 80 to 100 plays in those 2 days, and Thursday is a little bit of probably more of a 60-70 rep day for us. So we won't get as much in that time.
So I know you're shooting for around 70, mid-70s, upper 70s on a given day. So you're pretty close to getting a game's worth of reps every day you practice.
Yeah, we think we have to do it that way. Is just when we get teams to the fourth quarter, we want to make sure that our guys are conditioned to be able to play in the fourth quarter. It's also it's a tough offense to be able to execute over and over and over again. So you want to make sure that you have enough reps, enough different looks to make sure that you get the proper looks all throughout the week for your quarterbacks especially.
With your first 3 ball games, all wins, all the game-winning drives have come with less than 3 minutes to go in each of those ball games. Has it been solely execution? Have you noticed the other team wearing down a bit, or do you think it's been a little bit of a combination of both?
Yeah, it is a combination of both. There's also some things that you've been setting up throughout the course of the day. Going back to the Mercer game, there's a couple things that we set up through the course of the day that we thought we had. We kept it in our back pocket. With the Furman game, I thought we kind of were able to wear them out a little bit. I thought they were well conditioned, but yet we just kept on putting the fullback on them. We got a couple big pass plays to get us in a good field position there, so that was good. And then with last week, 2 weeks ago with the Gardner-Webb game, we kind of set things up. That last pitch that we had, or the last option play that we had been getting the pitch all day long, and then Dom hit a vertical seam instead of pitching it. So he kind of lulled him to sleep a little bit and kind of hit him with a vertical seam, which was nice.
I think they're still talking about that fake that he put on in that Gardner-Webb game.
Yeah.
That was amazing, that's for sure, and fun to watch that young man play. Looks like he's shaking the rust off just a little bit there. Speaking of individual players, an honor handed out today to your punter, Will Vanvik. He was named a semifinalist for the 2016 Campbell Trophy, one of 36 college players to be named to that. That's not necessarily having to do with how you punt the football or how you play the game of football. It has to do a lot with what kind of scholar athlete you are, all encompassing. That's a pretty big deal right there.
Yeah, Will's not only a great punter, he's a terrific young man. He's going to be a great Citadel man. There's no doubt about that. The thing that I've really relied on Will for is a lot of his core knowledge. He's a leader in the core. He worked athletic cadre for us this past summer. So between him and our center, Ryan Bednar, I really relied heavily on them to take care of our freshmen and to be able to, report back to me on everything that, that was going on during that time, which, as you know, is very important for us. But, I thought he was a perfect fit for it. He's a terrific student. He's a great young man, and he's certainly a good punter.
The Campbell Trophy is given each year to the absolute best football scholar athlete in the nation. So that's a pretty big deal right there again, and Will Van Vick is one of 36 names on that list. Let's talk a bit about Western Carolina, and I want to pick this up a little bit later on in the show and get a little more in-depth about these guys. But talk about last year's game with Western Carolina. It came a little earlier. It came after week number 2. You'd had an opportunity to get a game in before you played Western Carolina, and you beat them soundly, 28-10 on your home field. Talk about what last year's win over Western Carolina meant. What went through your mind as that game is going along, and then you hand them a pretty convincing defeat. You rack up 28 points, kept Troy Mitchell kind of hemmed in. He wasn't able to really go wild there. But from a grand scheme of things, what did that win over Western mean to the ball club last year?
Well, that was one of those games that you had circled on your calendar. Is we did not perform well up there the year before. We turned the ball over. We thought we played a fairly decent game on offense. We didn't play very well, execute a game on defense. So we spent a lot of time both offensively and defensively in the preseason on Western, which I thought paid off for us. And you also taken one of the top teams in the conference. You beat them early. It gives you a little bit of confidence. I thought all those things played played a factor in that. It was a little bit hot that night. We had them down, at our place in the heat with the core cadets, and the stands were filled. So, I thought it was a great environment for that kind of a win and that kind of a game. But similarly, it's going to be like that going up there. It's going to be a little bit more their kind of weather up there. It's going to be cool. It's going to be a packed house up there. So it'll be an exciting atmosphere. So it'll be probably a tough win for us for sure.
It certainly was an eye-opening type of a victory from my vantage point because of the way you kind of handled them. As you mentioned, they got you at their place the year before, but when you think back on that, you go into this game, second game of the year, you have a brand new quarterback. Obviously, you see your guys more than anyone else does. Most people see them on game day, and that's pretty much it. And so that day, it really kind of answered some questions about Dominique Allen because we really didn't know a lot about that young man, for example. Not that he's the only one, but that's where I really thought, wow. We were very concerned. Everyone had talked about the fact that the Citadel was the only team in the league that would have to replace its starting quarterback. And, wow, this young man looked pretty good after week 2.
Yeah, he took control of that. They came out in a different defense for us, which is the first thing that, is going to rattle your quarterback a little bit. But he handled it without any problem. We made some on-the-field adjustments there. It was a little bit of a back and forth. I thought they did a good job of making adjustments themselves. We threw a lot of different formations at them. We threw a lot of different schemes at them. So it was all we could do to score those 28 points. And I know, unfortunately, we threw an interception down in the end zone. So that didn't help us out at all either.
Western Carolina, for a very long time, until Mark Spear became their head coach, had 9 lost seasons and 10 lost seasons. 7-5 a couple of seasons ago, 7-4 a year ago. So apparently he's turned some things around. When I would have discussions with Mike Houston about Western Carolina, he gave them credit for opening the eyes of him and your staff, guys like yourself, with the way that they rebuilt their team on just pure speed. Did you guys take some cues from them, and did they kind of serve as an example of what it takes to kind of turn things around quickly in this league?
Well, the first thing they did was they established an identity. This is what they wanted to do. They wanted a dynamic quarterback. They went out in Texas and found a dynamic quarterback. They wanted to be able to run the ball. They wanted to put you in a little bit of space right there. And then Coach Spear being a defensive guy, they were going to be very solid on defense. So when you start with an identity, and no matter what program you walk into, that's what you want to do. So when Coach Houston and I and the rest of the staff came down 2 years ago, that's what we wanted to do, establish an identity, and that was we're going to find a way to run the football no matter what, and we're going to stop the run no matter what. So once you start from there and you build from there, the kids start to believe, and I think that's what happened at Western. They put a little bit of speed and space out there. He's done a good job of recruiting, and he's got his obstacles up there recruiting as well as we do. But he's done a phenomenal job of recruiting to a system and building that program. And he's a great guy. I think he's done a great job with that program. And they're going to be a tough one every year.
They have a dual threat quarterback, which we'll talk about a little later on in the show. But they just got graduated a dual threat quarterback. You're probably not going to miss Troy Mitchell much, are you?
No, not at all. But the young man that they have right now is equally as good, and he may do some things better than Troy does. I think he throws the ball spectacularly, which is, it could really put us into a lot of jam up.
Let us jump aside for another timeout here from Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue in West Ashley, and we'll come back with more with the coach talking specifically about Western Carolina, the opponent for this weekend for the Citadel Bulldogs. We will talk about that dual threat quarterback for the Catamounts. His name is Tyree Adams, and we'll get into him coming up in just a little bit. Want to remind you that during football season, on Sunday, all day Sunday, 25% off on wings here at West Ashley. Coach is enjoying a dozen of those tonight. I don't expect him to change that until the Bulldogs drop a game, which we hope is a long time down the road there. But during football season, all day on Sunday here at West Ashley, 25% off
Did
the
you
wings.
say 97?
And
Yes.
they are very, very
that reminds
good.
me of
No
Geico's
question about
97%
that.
customer
All right, we'll take the break
satisfaction
right here
rating.
and come back with more of the Coach Brent Thompson
97%?
Radio Show
Helped
on
by Geico's
Sports
fast
Radio
and friendly claim
1450.
service.
Titles are forever.
You've seen us compete on Barbecue Pit Wars. You've heard about our award-winning barbecue and wings, but have you tried Qology yet? Barbecue nachos, award-winning ribs, barbecue tacos, and of course our pulled pork sandwiches, just for a start. Live entertainment and happy hour Monday through Friday from 4 to 7 p.m. Visit Qology Barbecue today, located at 32C North Market Street at the corner of North Market and East Bay.
I enlisted in the Army in 2005. I went to Iraq 3 times and Afghanistan once. She's the culprit that ripped our door off. 2,000-pound animal bumping into a steel door creates quite a bit of damage. I actually use the app, take pictures of it right there for USAA, and they take care of the rest. USAA is great about working with both active and separated military. I'm Josh Eilers, and I'm a USAA member for life.
Call USAA today to talk about your insurance needs.
I enlisted in the Army in 2005. I went to Iraq 3 times and Afghanistan once.
Welcome back to Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue in West Ashley for the Brent Thompson Radio Show, live tonight and every Wednesday night from 7 until 8. Glad to have you with us. The head coach of the Bulldogs is alongside Brent Thompson. Last week we had a question from the audience that I did not get in, and so I kept the piece of paper that it was submitted on, and wanted to ask you about it in this evening's show, Coach, and that was that this particular guy, our buddy Gil over here, had been at the game at Gardner-Webb and noticed that in the Big South, in that particular instance, they were using replay to help the officials on close calls. Would you like to see this in the Southern Conference, and when might you see this in the Southern Conference?
We discussed it at our summer meetings this year, and there's some logistical things that go into that, and one of them is that you have to have a replay booth, and all of your stadiums have got to have a lockable replay booth in there. So logistically, it takes a little bit more work. You got to have all the cameras. Now we're getting all the cameras in place with the ESPN3, so I think that's all helping us out. I would like to eventually see us get to that point. But I know it may be another year or two down the line before we can get there, before we can get everybody in line in the conference goes. I wasn't always on board with it. I thought it kind of ruined the flow of the game. But after doing this for a few weeks, I kind of understand as to how that could help you out or how it would be beneficial. And we had the one touchdown that we did look at Gardner-Webb as our first kind of instant replay experience this year, and it worked out fairly well. I mean, the young man did score, so it wasn't an issue. But it's one of those things that is nice to have at your fingertips.
So it's a to be determined. There is no imminent situation with regard to replay. No one's saying that in 2017 all the Southern Conference games are going to be equipped with it.
No, but we're still in discussions, and I know a lot of the conferences have gone to it. The Big South has gone to it, and we're probably one of the few that hasn't. But that's certainly okay too. It's not going to ruin us.
Again, a question from the audience from our friend Gil over here. He's also looking, based on his trip to Gardner-Webb, for some tire care tips. So if you got any of those, maybe you can send those to him as he sent his question in to us today. Gil's a great guy, comes to all the shows. He's going to miss one next week, so we're going to have to do something really unique while he's gone, give away a car or something along those lines. So Western Carolina is the opponent for this week. The Citadel Bulldogs will go to Cullowhee and play on Saturday afternoon. Are you getting a little tired of playing these road games, or are you feeling pretty good about the fact that you're kind of backloaded on home games?
Yeah, you do. Now, for us, I thought we had the bye week. Well, we had the Thursday, first of all. We had a Thursday game, so we traveled for that. When we came home, we actually had the Saturday off afterwards, so that's not too bad. So then we come back for a home game. That's not too bad. And then we're broken up. We go to Gardner-Webb. So they were staggered out enough between the bye week and a Thursday game that the travel's not killing you. We looked at our schedule and we said, we've got one more pretty hefty road trip, and that's the one up to VMI late in the year. But other than that, I think they're very manageable, and we're certainly looking forward to the month of October to be able to get back to Johnson Haygood Stadium and see our fans and have the core there, and be extremely excited to be home for sure.
I tell people all the time that regardless of X's and O's, sometimes it boils down in games to just how previous games have gone, how much people want to kind of get back to it. Western Carolina may look back at your game last year when they lost as something that kept them out of the playoffs. They would have had an 8th win. They went 7-4 and thought maybe they deserved an opportunity to be in the playoffs. They did not get in. I thought it would be a little bit of a long shot for a third Southern Conference team to get in there. So they have some motivation in that they felt like they didn't play at their best a year ago, and that's powerful motivation for teams.
Well, it worked for us the year before, where we didn't play very well our first year up in Cullowhee, that's for sure. So it did work for us, and that we certainly had motivation, especially coming back home. And then, with Western being 7-4, I think they had 2 FBS losses and two conference champion losses, one to Chattanooga and one to the Citadel. So, they certainly did have an argument to be able to, for a third team from the Southern Conference to go. But unfortunately, that's the way that it goes sometimes. They were a very good football team, and they played well at the stretch, which is always important when you're considering the playoff bracket.
You mentioned FBS games. Before I get too deep into Western Carolina, nuts and bolts wise, I wanted to mention FCS versus FBS games and wins this year. I just saw an article that came out today that said to this point in 2016 there have been 10 FCS wins by teams over FBS schools. There were 9 a year ago. The record is 16, and it was in 2013. So, you can't say that it's happening at a more frequent pace. It's happening about the same on a year-in, year-out type of a basis. But talk about how FCS teams who aren't supposed to even belong in games like that are in games like that. The Citadel Bulldogs being a case in point from a year ago when they got an FBS win.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we're lacking some scholarships, obviously, but the recruiting end of things is there's not a whole lot of players that are going unnoticed anymore with the huddle films and the emailing of films everywhere. There's still some good players that are getting recruited all over the place, and there's a lot of great emphasis on high school football. So the high school coaches are doing a great job of preparing their players So no matter what level that you are, you feel like you've got a chance. Now, with us, we always felt like we just didn't have the scholarships always to compete. But the good thing is our players get up for that. Our players love playing those FCS games or those FBS games. We, the two that we've played since we've been here, the Florida State game and the South Carolina game, I thought our kids fought very hard in those games, and they love playing in those environments. And we play it up, of course. You get an opportunity to do something that you don't get to do very often, which is great. So it's really interesting to watch. Of course, we saw North Dakota State, which is I think they've won 5 in a row right now over FBS schools, and beaten Iowa this year, which is a tremendous feat. And of course, everybody remembers the App State and the Michigan game and all that. So
sure.
They're part of what makes college football awesome.
And they might continue to occur, but though most teams are kind of headed into league play now, I think that is kind of going to ebb a little bit for the coming season here. Earlier in the show, we talked about how you've had a proficiency for, as we kind of talked about on the air during the Gardner-Webb game, kind of living on the edge. 3 straight wins, 3 straight times where with under 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, you score to take the lead and hold on to it to win ball games. But on the defensive side of it is where the numbers are really mind-blowing. In the fourth quarter of your 3 games, your opposition has scored 7 points, and you've allowed only 122 yards of total offense. That's to 3 opponents in 3 fourth quarters. How do you explain that?
I think the defensive staff has a great pulse on on where the team is at, what needs to be done, all the adjustments that need to get done, as well as our conditioning. Our defensive guys believe they are in great shape. We've kind of conditioned them to believe that we've got to win everything in the fourth quarter, and that's okay. So a lot of that plays into it, and I think as a program, our players all believe that they can win in the fourth quarter. So. Whatever it takes is kind of what we say, and it doesn't matter whether we need it in the fourth quarter or the first quarter. Somebody's got to step up at some point, whether it's the special teams or the offense or the defense, and it all comes down to one thing, and that's playing as a team and playing together and playing as one locker room. And I heard Tevin Floyd say that yesterday in the press conference, and I'm glad to hear him say that because that's something that we believe in.
Each week when you do the press conferences at Tuesday at noon, at Johnson Haggett Stadium on the Pearson level there, you bring a number of players. You just talked about how Tevin Floyd did and what he said there. I would think that it would be hard to be concerned about what guys might say with guys on your roster. They seem like a pretty impressive bunch of guys, represent the team very well, but that's an aspect that's not just a given. I mean, I hear athletes talking all the time, and I think maybe they shouldn't have. But talk about the things that your guys say at the podium that kind of jives along with what you're saying, so you kind of know that these guys are getting what you're talking about.
Yeah, like yesterday we had Dominique, which is it's not an easy situation for Dom. He had to come up there, obviously being suspended in the first game and really playing a little bit in the second game and a little bit more in the third game, and then finally being announced the starter during the bye week. What we had to make sure that he got the message, and I think he got the message loud and clear. And I knew it was time to bring him because he had fought for that position back. He had really regained the trust of the coaching staff and of his teammates, and that really had to come on the practice field. We didn't give him a whole lot of opportunities in the Furman game. We gave him a little bit more as time went on, but when you don't have a full camp to prepare and you're not running through camp with those guys and you're not nearly in the daily grind, it's hard to bond with those guys. And Jordan did a great job of being able to bond with those guys and take this leadership over. And then, I thought Dom handled things extremely well, helping Jordan out, getting himself in good shape. And so really when he took the podium yesterday, he kind of said a few things that I had said to him early on in the year, that you're going to have to earn a lot of things back that you had taken for granted. And I think even at one point he said, it even humbled me a little bit, which is probably the overall point that we wanted to get across to him. And ever since then, he's been great, and we hope he continues that way. So that's just one example, of one of the guys being able to take the podium. You don't really know if it got through, but I think it certainly did, and he's done a great job. And of course, the other thing was Tevin, talking about how we've been able to win games and how in that locker room they're as tight as they can be. And at any point in the game, we need to be picked up, and we get the pickup that we need, and we hope that continues.
We will return with more from Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue in West Ashley in just a couple of moments. I'm with head coach Brent Thompson, and this is the Brent Thompson Radio Show on Sports Radio 1450.
We build our communities. We earn our success. We, as South Carolinians, work best together. Don't follow your bank into the impersonal world of mergers. Make a change. Visit South Atlantic Bank to talk with local bankers who care about the Low Country. Our local headquarters will be ready next year on Johnny Dodds Boulevard. Until then, stop by our current location. You'll find a community bank with a proven track record of financial success. South Atlantic Bank. People you know and trust.
Oh yeah, baby. Geico's as fast and friendly as it gets.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Home is a big financial decision, so you need a strong team working on your mortgage. That team is at South Atlantic Bank.
Decisions are made right here in our community by mortgage professionals who really know the Low Country.
South Atlantic Bank offers competitive rates and terms on loans for home purchase or refinance. If you need a mortgage loan, you need the mortgage loan professionals at South Atlantic Bank.
South Atlantic.
Welcome back to the West Ashley location of Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue. We are set up in the brand new addition on the outside. This used to be a beauty parlor out here, but now we have seating for 40 and available for private parties, 5 flat screen TVs. Coach and I do a show from up on the stage, which kind of has a cage around it, so it's the stage and a cage. And this is one of the better seats in the house. You can take a look at just about anything on the screens around you. And so it's a great place for us to have our show each and every week. And we thank you for listening in or watching or being with us in person here at Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue. So Western Carolina is up next for the Citadel Bulldogs, but I talk about individual players from time to time on the show. Haven't said a lot about some of the other guys, but we've talked a lot about the quarterback situation. It's the one that tends to be the one I'm asked about the most, but I hate to say that he's doing it quietly, but then we talk about how Detrez Newsome from Western Carolina is such a threat from the running back position, but your guy, your B-back, Tyler Renew, is ahead of him in the league in rushing. He's ranking 3rd right now in the league.
Yeah, Tyler kind of got taken away from us a little bit at the Gardner Webb, and come to find out that was kind of their game plan, which I can understand completely. So, once you take the B-back out of our game, we got to try to find some other ways to move the football, which we were able to do in the Gardner Webb game. We do it by committee at times, but sometimes the B-back ends up being the featured back. If we can get him going in the right direction, that usually helps us out. But we talked about it last week. I think where Tyler's come a long way from where he was his sophomore year when I first got him to where he was his junior year. I thought he was, 3rd, 4th week into the season, he starts to play a little bit more, has a terrific game, and of course he's known for the South Carolina win. And then this year, he's taken it all over really on his own, and he took the first 142 snaps or something of the year before we were able to get Isaiah Smith in for a couple reps last week. But we will have all 3 B-backs back healthy, ready to go, and that's Tyler Renew, Isaiah Smith, and Evan McField this week. So I'm excited to get all those guys back and have fresh bodies, which is always much needed at that position.
You weren't able to necessarily split the season in thirds last year, but each of those guys contributed at different times of the year for you. It was McField somewhat early, Isaiah, and then late in the year, no one was able to stop Tyler Renew.
Yeah, it was nice. I mean, we had fresh bodies in there most of the time, which is always good at that position. And then, for the most part, throughout the day, I would just play the hot hand and see who was feeling it. And you could tell there's some guys that have feels for better defense in different plays, and sometimes you're on and sometimes you're not, and it's good to have options.
So let's jump into Western Carolina just a little bit. We've got a couple of segments left in the show, and so let's jump in here. What I know about Western Carolina offensively is this. From a play-calling perspective, they are almost 50-50. From a yardage perspective, they are 65-35 pass. So talk about their offense a little bit there. Obviously, if you're 65-35 in terms of the number of yards you get through the air, but yet you call about the same number of plays on both sides, they're obviously a bit more explosive when they throw the ball.
Yeah, they definitely are. They've got great wide receivers. I thought they've got one guy that can go up and get it. Spearman Robinson can go up and get it, and he does a great job of it. And they've got another one that's a little bit of a slot, kind of not quite as tall, but I think he's got the more yards, he's got the more catches, and so they're dynamic in that department, and the quarterback puts it on the money, which is I thought was a little bit of a question mark going into the year, but it's certainly they've answered that question for sure. I think he's got 600 yards or something already, which is a terrific stat for them. And then of course they've got Newsom. I mean, if you pay too much attention to one, you're going to get burned by the other one. So you got to be all facets of the game, and they've done a good job. I thought their offense is extremely powerful. We've got to try to keep them off the field as much as possible.
5 giveaways, 4 takeaways on the season for Western Carolina. They are at a -1. Another thing that would illustrate that they have quick striking ability is that their time of possession is only 26:04. So they're getting off the field pretty fast offensively.
They are, and we just ended up watching the ETSU game, and I think they had 6 snaps or so in the third quarter. So that kind of hurt that time of possession for them. But they did score fairly quickly in the first half. And they do a good job, they do a good job of sustaining drives and getting the ball into those playmaker hands. We watched them pretty good against Gardner-Webb, being that we played Gardner-Webb a week before or a week after that they played them, and we saw that they were, they got the ability to be able to score at any moment down the field. And really one of them, I think, was Detrez Newsom was just trying to get a first down, and he takes the ball 40, 50 yards down the sideline. They had him bottled up, and too many guys were inside, and next thing you know, he squirts out the outside, and he scores on a 4th and short, I believe is what it was.
Newsom is 4th in the league in rushing. He is 1st in the league in scoring. He already has 7 touchdowns. He has rushed for 4. He has caught 3 so far, and he's averaging about 5 yards a carry. So let's talk about what they do from an offensive perspective. Is it the same Western Carolina in that they're going to try to spread you out a bit, stretch it as much as possible, get athletes who can run in open space and let them do what they do?
Absolutely, they run the power sweep with the quarterback, which a lot of guys are doing right now. They've got the inside zone to the A back to their halfback, and then of course they can flip it out on the bubble screen if they get too many guys in the box. They do a little bit of run pass option, which a lot of teams are doing right now. Where they're giving the quarterback the ability to hand the ball off or flip it out there to one of the wide receivers on a quick stop route or something. So they can get you in a lot of different ways. And most of it is by spreading the field and making you defend about 53 1/3, which can be difficult.
Detrez Newsom, 230 yards on the season, 4 TDs, again 5 yards per carry. The quarterback that is of concern, tops in the league in passing average. He's 1st in total offense, and he's the 2nd rated passer in the league right now. Tyree Adams has 7 TDs and 3 interceptions. He's thrown for almost 1,000 yards already for them and rushed for 171. So are you looking at, and we can only use comparisons based on the last guy that you saw, for the most part, fresh in people's memory, Maxwell from Gardner-Webb and Adams. Compare and contrast, if you would.
I think he throws it a little bit better than Maxwell, that's for sure, but they both can make you miss. They both can extend the play. If you got him bottled up, you better watch out because he may be able to escape on you. You got to assign somebody to him. But overall, I think he throws the ball a little bit more accurately. I thought the Maxwell kid from Gardner-Webb may have run it a little bit more experience there. He had a little bit more savvy to him. But the playmakers that are around the young man from Western is really where it's at. He's got a lot more dynamic players with him.
Terrion Robinson is who Coach was referring to a while ago, who is kind of their top target. He's 2nd in the league in both catches per game and in receiving yards per game. He's already caught 22 balls on the season so far, and so that's a little bit of a highlight of what goes on with regards to Western Carolina. Defensive side, their top tackler is Fred Payne. He is in the secondary. Avery Worsham is their sacks leader, though he only has 2 so far in the year. So what's the snapshot of the defense that Western Carolina is going to throw out there at you?
They're big. They're very large up front. They're a little bit, they're a little bit inexperienced at linebacker right now. They had a good linebacker that graduated last year, and then there's another linebacker that's not currently playing. But Fred Payne, I know a lot about him because we've seen him for the last couple of years. He does a great job. I think in the secondary they're pretty strong. Up front they're fairly new because they had a lot of seniors last year, but a lot of those guys had played. And like I said, they're big. We're going to have to try to move those guys off the ball, and I would imagine they're just going to try to sit in their gaps as much as they can, and it'll take all that we can to be able to push them around.
It's as if you didn't see enough of Newsome, but you see him in the return game too. So let's talk special teams where Western Carolina is concerned.
He can be dangerous back there. There's no doubt about it. We've got to be, and we've done some things. We kind of adjust our kickoff unit a little bit, adjust our punt unit a little bit. We know exactly where he is, and we know exactly where we need to put the ball right there. And I had a conversation after practice with Will Vanvick about the punts out there. So he's got a game plan in mind as to what we've got to do to be able to help our punt coverage team to be able to get down the field and make sure that we cover punts. So, a lot of it's going to go into play. They're dangerous in a lot of different ways.
It is hard to compare scores, but we tend to try to do it. Sometimes it's the best way we know to kind of take a feel for what a team is going to do when you play them. Where Western Carolina is concerned, they played at East Carolina, which is an FBS game, and they lost that one, a rather lopsided ball game there, giving up over 680 yards of total offense. And then they host Gardner-Webb, a team that you beat in the fourth quarter. I know they're a different team when they're away from home, dramatically actually, than they are when they are at home. But Western is able to beat them 44-14. You had the unique opportunity of seeing a team you're about to play against a team that you're about to play that particular week. And so what kind of things did you see from that particular game? That was a little bit of an eye-opener.
Yeah, we watched that game from both sides of the ball. I had the opportunity to watch them both on defense and on offense. And you see a little bit of a tale of two different teams there with Gardner-Webb as to where they were in the first half. They were really going into tie, 14-14 right at the middle of the end of the second quarter. And the wide receiver caught a tunnel screen, and it got poked out. I think they were inside the 15, inside the 20-yard line. It got poked out, and I think that was kind of the turning point or the change of momentum for that football game. Now, I know Gardner-Webb hung in there, and it was fairly close at the half. And really, it didn't start to get out of hand until maybe midway through the third quarter. And I thought that Gardner-Webb had a good game plan going, as if they would have just stuck with their game plan originally, keep on running the football. If they can, maybe take some more time off the clock, move the ball down the field, don't get too antsy down there, don't take as many shots as you had to. After watching them play us, I thought they ran the ball very effectively against us. So I thought that they could run the ball effectively against Western as well if they just stuck to their game plan. Which is, I think it's part of our game plan too, is just try to stick with your game plan, make sure that you can move the ball down the field and keep it out of their offense's hands, and try to once again win the thing in the fourth quarter.
As the schedule worked out, you have an open date after Gardner-Webb leading into Western Carolina. They have an open date after losing to ETSU and leading into you. Who do you think benefits more from a week off in terms of preparing for the unique challenges the other one presents?
No, I think they do, because it's always hard to prepare for the triple option. It's so, a lot of the offenses are very similar nowadays, where ours is completely different. So when you've got 6 or 7 days to prepare for us and usually have 3 days to prepare for us, that always plays a huge factor in things. But that's not something that we can, concern ourselves with. We're not going to make any excuses with regards to that. We've got to get better at what we're doing. We've got to keep on progressing our offenses and our defense schematically to make sure that we can stay one step ahead of everybody else. And, because you never know what you're going to need when you're going to need it.
I think I mentioned this to you and asked you about this on last week's show, but I'll do it again in this particular instance, and that was surprised by the ETSU score against Western Carolina. They played it on a neutral field. They played it at Bristol Motor Speedway, but ETSU winning 34-31 in that ball game, scoring 24 points in a row to erase a 21-3 deficit. So did that one catch you by surprise? I would think sometimes people think that a team coming into the league for the first time after kind of building their program would really struggle to win a game in the league in their first year.
Yeah, well, the first score that caught me by surprise was they played a good Kennesaw team, and I've seen Kennesaw because they're a triple option team. They played Kennesaw State, and they beat Kennesaw State early on in the year, and it was a fairly tight ball game, and it was a low-scoring affair. So, I knew that there was something going on up there at ETSU, and I thought they had maybe taken the corner, and Coach Torbush does a good job up there. And they may have redshirted some guys last year, preparing them for league play and all that. And then I had an opportunity to watch it, at the Bristol Motor Speedway game, and that looked like it was a difficult place to play. There was a large venue with a small amount of fans in there, and I think there were still 13,000. It just looked like a small amount of fans there. So it's a little bit of a different environment, a little bit of a different setup, maybe something that you're not used to. And then what you saw was ETSU scores late in the second quarter going into halftime, and then they get the ball back and they score again. So a lot of the momentum that Western had in the first half really had been gone and evaporated on them. And then, as I alluded to before, they only had 6 or 7 offensive snaps in the third quarter. So a lot of that momentum was just sucked away from them. And football games can go like that, and it doesn't matter who's playing who. And at that point, it becomes a huge momentum thing. And the team that was behind now, that's all of a sudden ahead. And we felt that at the Mercer game. We felt that at the Mercer game, and it takes a lot to be able to rally and bounce back from going up by such a large margin to being able to go down by a small margin even. But it's certainly something that you got to be able to overcome.
You mentioned, and I mentioned, the Bristol Motor Speedway game with Western and ETSU. Curious question, and obviously where you are in the country geographically plays a big part in this deal, but would you favor in any way playing a game neutral site? And is that anything that you ever thought about I'd really like to get into this recruiting area by playing a game in this particular? Does anything like that make sense, or would you favor it in any way?
That makes no sense to me for who we are and what we do. We have a hard place to play. I know that. I would never sacrifice one of our home games, that's for sure. We've got a great crowd. We've got a great alumni base. We've got our whole student body there. The Corps Cadets is there. I certainly wouldn't want to, even try to replicate that any other place than it is at Johnson Haygood Stadium. The flashiness of it and all the other things that you speak of are great and all, but Citadel football, I believe, is for Citadel fans, and that's really what I want to leave it with.
We will come back and have the last segment of the show with the coach in just a couple of moments. We're at Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue in West Ashley, out in the new room out on the back here. A lot of people kind of look around and go, wow, I didn't even know this was out there. And so come by and take a look at it. A great place to watch some games with 5 flat screen TVs, 40 seats, and it's available for private parties as well. Last segment of the show when we come back in a moment on Sports Radio 1450.
97! Set! Red 97!
Did you say 97?
Yes.
That reminds me of Geico's 97% customer satisfaction rating.
97%?
Helped by Geico's fast and friendly claim service.
Oh yeah, baby. Geico's as fast and friendly as it gets.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
She's the culprit that ripped our door off. 2,000-pound animal bumping into a steel door creates quite a bit of damage. Actually use the app. Take pictures of it right there for USAA, and they take care of the rest. USAA is great about working with both active and separated military. I'm Josh Eilers, and I'm a USAA member for life.
Call USAA today to talk about your insurance needs.
Serving locals and visitors alike for the last 20 years. We have our crispy whole flounder. We have the seared ahi tuna. You name it, in the seafood business, we have it.
Be sure to stop by the Tiger and Leaf Lounge whenever you visit our locations. We have many frozen and specialty drinks, awesome margaritas. One of my favorites is the Wappi Punch.
If you don't like it down in the historic district, come over to James Island, sit on the Intercoastal Waterway. It is an unbelievable view where it's southern seafood at sensible prices and a darn good time.
Style, selection, service, quality, value. See what everyone is talking about. Ashley Furniture Home Store.
Our communities. We earn our success. We, as South Carolinians, work best together. Don't follow your bank into the impersonal world of mergers. Make a change. Visit South.
Back for a final segment with Citadel head coach Brent Thompson. I'm Mike Legg from Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue in West Ashley. We'll be right back here again next week from 7 until 8 and prepared to talk about perhaps win number 4 for the Citadel Bulldogs as they go to Western Carolina this weekend to take on the Catamounts, a team that was picked to finish 3rd in a lot of the polling, 4th in one of the others. So they are expected to be right up there with regard to that. And so tough game for the Bulldogs this weekend, going on the road to try to get it done. And they will embark on that challenge coming up, leaving town on Friday, if you will. Anything else about Western Carolina that stands out to you, Coach, in terms of what that program is like? I mean, you spent a lot of time as an assistant coach in North Carolina, probably know a lot of those kids that are on that roster, probably crossed over a little bit on the recruiting trail a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. They've done a great job of recruiting the state, which I think you definitely have to do at Western Carolina. He's done a good job of dipping down in Charlotte, some of the best football in the area. And then I've noticed that I think his second largest state that he takes from is Georgia, being that he's fairly close right there. And that used to be my home state of recruiting right there. So I've got a pretty good idea of some of the players that he had taken there, and we had recruited, and we had cross-recruited some of those guys, both when we were at Lenoir Ryan as well as the Citadel. So he's taken a lot of really, and he does exactly what we want to try to do here is take your players that you think are going to be good football players, get yourself a couple of really good athletes in there, and you mix them all together, and the next thing you know, you've got a good program built. And that's what he's done there, and I think he's done a fabulous job of it. He's a great guy. He's another guy that spent a lot of time as an assistant coach, at App and in that area. So Coach Spear knows what it takes to be able to win, at some of those state schools in North Carolina, and he's done a great job of building that program.
My understanding is that this is a big homecoming this week. You have an assistant coach on your staff who played at Western Carolina. What time's the parade on Friday?
Coach Rucker, as soon as we get into town, I think they're going to escort him into town there. It's we'll be in around 4:30 heading into Waynesville Country Club up there. But Coach Rucker from North Carolina not only did he play there, but he also coached a few years for Coach Briggs. We're certainly glad to have him on our staff on the right side of the ball this time. And
some of the basketball staffers at the Citadel, including Coach Balkum, Coach Willis, who was here a little earlier, they spent some time at Western Carolina as well.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Coach Harrell went to school. He's a graduate of Western Carolina as well for us. And then, Coach Houston being from Western Carolina, we knew a lot about those guys up there when we were heading up there. So it certainly will be an exciting day up there for sure.
I'm glad you brought up Coach Harrell. I get a chance to meet with him every week and enjoy the visits and talking about defense there. And maybe we've glossed over this before, but in the latter moments of the show here, I kind of wanted to talk about the situation that he's in. And last year, the head coach was a defensive guy, and so he's got his hands in a little bit of what's going on with the defensive side. Not that deteriorates the role of the defensive coordinator, but now the defensive coordinator has an offensive-minded head coach with offensive experience, obviously, and he has a little bit more of it to himself. Talk about what that must be like to sit in that chair and have that kind of a control, and your faith, obviously, in him plays a big part in that.
Yeah, Mike, when I gave Coach Harrell the title of the defensive coordinator, I said to him, I would really like this to work just like Mike and I worked out. Is he kind of left me alone. He trusted me, and I had worked with Coach Harrell for 6-7 years already. So I had known what he was capable of. He had been our special teams coordinator. He'd been our recruiting coordinator at Lenoir Ryan. So he had coordinated at every different level and worked very, very hard at it. So that was my expectation, and I think it's worked out the way I thought it would. And he's done a good job of taking it over, making it his, and making sure that he's sound, which is the most important thing.
Well, it's a little bit, when I think about it, I think back at Remember the Titans, where you got Herman Boone, the character from Denzel Washington, talking to the defensive guy, Coach Yost, and telling him he's going to take over and all that little battle you had going on the sidelines. Fun stuff there. That's not happening where you guys are concerned.
No.
Coach, thanks a bunch. Appreciate you being here tonight, as always. We look forward to the game at Western Carolina on Saturday. Good luck. Go get the Catamounts.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, that is Coach Brent Thompson. I'm Mike Legg. Thanks so much for being with us at the West Ashley location of Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue. We'll talk to you at 1:30 Saturday on this very station for pregame coverage of the Bulldogs at the Catamounts. Good night and go Bulldogs.